In Nigeria, most purchases are made on a cash basis. If you have the money, you pay, and the goods are yours. While there are options like loans and mortgages, they're out of reach for the average Nigerian due to limited access, high interest rates, and strict eligibility requirements. As a result, consumer credit remains underutilized in the country, even though it could be a powerful tool for improving the quality of life. Now, in more developed countries, consumer credit is a lifeline many citizens depend on. It's deeply embedded in everyday transactions, from buying foodstuffs to financing homes. In Nigeria, however, it has yet to become part of the mainstream. Bridging this gap could unlock new opportunities for financial inclusion and economic growth. Tonight, our guest is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Consumer Credit Corporation, Engineer Uzoma Nwagba. Good day, and thank you for being on our program.
Thank you very much.
I would like to start, I think, at the beginning. This is a new agency, and you have the credit of setting it all up. Can you tell us about the agency?
Sure. This agency, CrediCorp, which is the Nigerian Consumer Credit Corporation, is entirely a brainchild of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And I always tell people that if you listen to his speeches, even as far back as 20 years ago when he was the governor of Lagos State, he's always been passionate about this thing about people having a better quality of life through credit, that you don't have to save money over years or sometimes decades to buy a car or buy a house or power your home or even pay for school, when you can get the thing upfront, the good or service upfront now, and enjoy it for those years and decades while paying a little bit over time. And what happens is that you don't lose time of a good quality life waiting for the end. So contrast that, and I think that comes perhaps from his time in Chicago, right? Just living in a place where credit works and seeing, and we have the same experiences here for those of us who are here who have friends, family, relatives outside of Nigeria. You see that your friends, family, relatives have better houses, drive cars.
The one I find interesting is they get a house or mortgage and sell it and get another one. And the mortgage, it looks like, wow.
But that's even financial engineering. But at its base, it's even that you can get the good and service and have a good life, right? And I always tell people my own personal story, because I happened to go to school in America for my university. And I came straight out of King's College here in Lagos, Nigeria. And I went to America for the first time ever as a student. And I landed there, Washington, D.C. I went to the bank. I got a credit card. The credit card was maybe $1,000 thereabouts, maybe not much money. But the most important thing was that I was spending from it and I was paying back every month. So if I buy books or food or whatever for school, I would pay back every single month because I had a job. I had sort of side jobs I was doing while I was a student. And just by consistently paying that credit card every single month, if I spend $200, I pay it back. If I spend $100, I pay it back. I was building my credit history. And by the time I was done with university 4 years later, I had a credit score of, out of 850, which is what the US is, I think it's 850, I had like 830 something. Very high credit score. So I was at the top of the range of just people who have been consistent users of credit. I had gotten a job at Microsoft from university, so I was going to start my life as an employee. I moved all across the country and I went into a Toyota dealership, like just a car shop. I said, I want to buy a car. I have a job now. They didn't ask me for my offer letter or my job. They didn't care how much I was making. All they did was check my credit history and saw that I was a high credit behaved person. And I walked out of that place with a brand new Toyota Camry. And that car was singularly responsible for the quality of my life as a young graduate who was now working in a technology company, because I could live where I could get a good house. I drove to work. It was just, my friendships, my relationships, everything was just better for that. And that continued to getting devices. Even when I then decided to leave the company, go get a graduate degree, I walked into a microfinance bank, basically at Harvard, which is where the graduate degree was, and walked in there and said, I want credit to pay for this graduate degree. And they checked my credit and they gave me credit. Now, that journey from that point of having that graduate school degree, it says I can draw a direct line from that point to my being the MD of CrediCorp today. Almost maybe, 15 or so. So
you have first-hand understanding.
I am purely a product of consumer credit from a system that works. So, and hearing the president speak passionately, adamantly, sometimes obsessively about this problem, we have a unique opportunity now to solve it.
You say problem. When you say problem, what problem did you see he identified? The one about people living the quality of life.
The people not having the quality of life that they can get because a credit system does not work in Nigeria, consumer credit.
Yes.
And so the question you ask me is, why does it not work? What is the problem?
Yes.
Fine. So remember that I walked into a car dealership and I gave them my social security number, which is like NIN in Nigeria.
Yes.
They put it in there. Remember that there are millions of car dealerships in the country, so everybody had access to the thing. The house I was going to rent, my landlord, for me to pay my rent monthly, not two years. I lived in a house that I could pay monthly, so I could get a good house. But if you asked me to pay the rent for 2 years, I wouldn't have been able to afford that house. All of those people had access to my credit. They just check your credit and see your behavior. Now, there are very many, the majority of the Nigerian population, I will tell you, are responsible people. This idea that somehow we are genetically predisposed to bad behavior is a fallacy. But most people are responsible. They could be responsible with credit if they got credit. But the problem is there is no system or infrastructure to be able to tell for sure who is good credit and who is bad credit.
Okay.
Now, we have credit bureaus, and there's sort of a credit reporting act and the CBN, and I'll talk a little bit about the work we are doing to just sanitize that thing and make it actually work for the Nigerian people.
Okay, but are you saying that had been existing?
It's existing, it's just not optimal.
Okay.
So that means if you walk into your bank or microfinance bank now and you say, I want to buy a laptop, I want to buy a car, just even tell me what do you expect to happen? Have you even tried? Do you even know what will happen? But you probably will not live there with.
No. I think most of us feel just as you said, experientially, most people have not gone to the bank to try. But when you talk of credit, it comes across as loan, and the whole collateral thing begins to come into your mind. So you just start asking for collateral and all that, so nobody bothers.
Right. So let me tell you, because we've talked to, at least so far, maybe getting to 6 million Nigerians since last 1 year of just going through this credit process. And so we know, not just as anecdotes, but as data, what the experience of people are. First is that, again, because the financial institutions don't have a way to truly know whether you are good credit or bad credit. They can check your credit score, but it's not encompassing of all your credit behavior. A lot of the times you attended to borrow, they can't see it. So they don't know to trust, they don't know what to make of you. So they just don't even lend to you, right? Now, so that's that part. Or they would take much safer bets, like they lend to you if your account is domiciled with them,
they will say,
and it has been there for a long time.
Come and open an account.
Opening an account is not enough. You have to have had your money there and you have to have access to it. So that significantly constrains the number of people that can have credit. So today it's about 3%. I think even it got a little bit to 6% in the last 5 years or so of the country that has had access to formal credit. Not I borrow from my friends and family, but like I went to an institution and I got consumer credit. Now, compared to a place like the US where it is 95%, compared to a place like China that is 90%, the country runs on credit. So for that reason, we have a credit system that is not optimal, that's not working for the people. And now why is that a problem? Why is that a problem is that the civil servant has to work all through their 35 years of service. They're saving their little chickeny money up and down, maybe access a bit of loans here and there, but not optimal, and then build their house when they are 60. I mean, what are you doing now when you are 60? That's like in the twilight of your life. But if you had a house when you were 35, then you actually are a person who has had a house, right?
And you have a long time in the what you call civil
service. And not just that, even your body,
yes,
your health is better.
True.
Okay, think about a car. You'll be slapping to the gas, I'm still slapping, like you're tracking to the bus station, you want to get a bus, but you can get a car up front. So and I'm even talking about civil servants that have regimented income. Those are even easier to understand credit-wise. Maybe they can even access some credit. But the vast majority of the Nigerian population are just people who have cash flow in some form, but the only thing that you cannot tell definitively is their true credit behavior, which a credit system will fix. So which now brings me to what is our work. Okay. So we have 3 jobs. So the first is around infrastructure, which is getting this credit system, working very closely with the CBN, getting this credit system to truly, truly work. In other words, all your credit behavior as a Nigerian should be written against your NIN and available to every single financial institution and everywhere where credit can happen, like a car shop, your furniture shop, your landlord. And some of this requires sort of working on the laws and all that. And that's something we're working very closely with the CBN because the custodian of the Credit Reporting Act is that. But the bottom line is, if every Nigerian has a credit score, like I told you about the credit score earlier, that means something that is unified. Now we have 3 credit bureaus. Yes, they're doing what they can, but they're operating in a suboptimal environment. It's our job to make them succeed. Unify what the credit score means. Make it one thing. Get people to write everything. Every time you borrow money, it is written against your credit. Just a credit system that works. You know, I don't know how familiar you are with some of these clients we talk about, but I bet you are. People are protective of their credit score. You don't want to ruin it. You don't want to mess up your credit because it practically affects your life. Second part of our work is capital. So capital is that we have funding from the federal government, and we are actually a development bank. We are a bank like BOI, like DBN, but it's a development bank that is focused on consumer credit. We're a bank like Bank of Agriculture. And so when we get that capital, we do 2 things, wholesale lending and credit guarantees. Wholesale lending means that because right now interest rates are so high, that's part of the problem with credit, then we go to the financial institutions and say, okay, for you that are doing credit, even in this suboptimal environment, you're still managing to do some sort of consumer credit, getting civil servants, getting young people, getting people to borrow and to get some of these goods and services. Now, it's not as many as we should because you are taking the very safe one, which is maybe like 3% of the population. How can I get you to 10% or 15%? By 2 things. 1, advancing you capital to drop your interest rates, to make it cheaper, to make it more accessible, to take a little bit more risk with our capital. But you are responsible. So I'm lending the money to you, and you are lending it to the Nigerian public. You are making consumer credit more accessible broadly for different things. And then you pay us back our capital much cheaper. That's one part. So that's wholesale lending. And for that, we've been able to so far we're getting to close to 120, 130,000 Nigerians now that have accessed credit from this channel. So you just saw the Youth Cred program that the president announced, and we just kicked off last week with coppers NYC, so 400,000 coppers. And I'll talk about why that's important, because it's not just about credit, it's also about credit orientation. The culture of understanding credit,
which is a shift, because I remember there was a point you mentioned about the need for a cultural shift.
Cultural reorientation about credit.
Because a lot of people are comfortable with pay and carry go.
Yes, and they haven't yet learned the principles of credit. And I'll tell you about that in a second, because that's the third part of our work. So my point is that after the infrastructure work, which allows the thing to open up properly. In fact, for that because that infrastructure work, we need about 180 trillion naira worth of credit. Not that the government should spend that money, but that's the money that should be revolving in credit for half of the population to have accessed consumer credit. Remember, I told you we are at 3%. US is at 95%. For Nigeria to get to 50%, the amount of credit that needs to be happening is about 180 trillion naira. So there's no chance the government can fund it. Right? It's the banking system that needs to stop putting their money in treasury bills and stop putting their money in government bonds, stop in some cases even buying FX and holding, and start to lend their money to you and I to better our lives. But I don't blame the banking system. We are actually pro banks in the sense that pro-banks in the sense that we understand the problem.
Where they are.
Right. And it is that you don't want to, I mean, you die if you lose your shirt, right?
You're playing safe.
Yes. So, I mean, they're a bit too safe, for sure, because all these other channels exist. So our financial system sort of creates a sort of perverse incentive, because if those didn't exist, you will be forced to figure out how to lend to people. But we still understand the problem. So with the infrastructure thing is to fix the infrastructure and give you a system that you can trust and a process that you can trust, sanctioned by the government, so that when you check someone's record, it's truly who they are. Has every single borrowing, including if they borrowed airtime and they didn't pay back, you will know. Right? So anyway, so that's the infrastructure part. Then the capital I've told you about. Yeah. Now, the last part of our work is cultural reorientation. Okay. Because what we found, again, having talked to close to 6 million Nigerians now, is that people who can even access credit sometimes don't try. Now, let's not get hung up. That's not the problem. That's not the real problem. Okay. Not say the problem is that Nigerians are not trying to get credit. No, they know credit. They're trying to get credit. But the system does not allow them to get, does not give them credit.
The system is playing safe.
Yeah, it's playing too safe. And sometimes, in fact, like you go to get credit and they ask you for collateral. I say, I'm an individual. My name is Uzoma. What is collateral? I should give you a house. I should give you a car. I should give you... Or they ask you, in fact, some of the financial institutions, some reported back to us that you say, go and try to get credit. And they say, well, they said that I should bring my CAC. The CAC.
As an individual.
Yes, I'm an individual. Why do I need my CAC? What's that anyway? As like a young 21-year-old, why do I care about CAC at that point? Yes. Right? So anyway, so the cultural reorientation is on two sides. One is, yes, it's hard to get credit, but there are some people who even have the mindset of, I don't want to be an onigbese. I don't want to have debt. And you know, as a very religious society that we are as well, you know, this concept of I want to be the lender and not the borrower. And your pastor will tell you, I don't go to the mosque. Yeah. I figure there's some version of the same thing, right? Where like
to encourage people to be accountable, to not be in debt.
Yeah, no, and it's even aspirational not to be in debt. Like you will be you must be the lender and not the borrower. Right? And some people like no. Like if I borrow money, it's a signal of a bad lot in life. But that is not the case. I always tell people that we always sing about America. America is just a country of 150 million onigbeses.
And it's a system that works.
They just borrow, better their lives, and pay back. And what that does is not just for the individual whose life is better, but it's also the individual and the industries and the economy that is radically transformed by just having credit in the system. Let me give you a few examples. So there's some multiplier of how much in credit exists versus how much in income exists in a country, right? I'm simplifying it. So that means if all of us in this room earn a total of 5 million naira a month, how much in credit can we access if we all earn 5 million naira a month? In other words, how many times more can our quality of life be over our income? Bear in mind that we will sustain the life by paying for it, right? So in the US, that number is 4 times. That means that the volume of credit is 4 times the volume of income in the country. That means that you can get credit up to 4 times your income. And people think of it and I think that's reckless. Why would you want to borrow money? Oh no, what that means is if I earn, I don't know, $50,000 a year, I can live a lifestyle that costs $200,000. Not necessarily in that year. But that means I can get a vehicle, I can furnish my house, I can get a television, I can send my kids to school. I can, once in a while, afford a decent maybe vacation or pay my medical bills, or start a micro enterprise. Some of you hear all these US entrepreneurs, even Mark Zuckerberg, I mean, he came from a bit of money, but most of them will tell you, I started my business by maxing out my credit card. Because
taking a leap.
Yes, because when you're starting a business now, you don't have the business. There's no company. There's no collateral. So you can't go to the bank and say, I am Larry Lasisi Enterprises. So what you do is that you rely on consumer credit. You borrow as a person.
On your own.
On your name, on your credit record to go and start. Then you start to build, you buy tables and chairs, computer, hire people, blah, blah, blah. And then you grow a business that can on its own go and borrow money. So even micro enterprise, which is majority of the country, starts off with consumer credit. In fact, of the 150,000 or so people now who have access credit enabled by CrediCorp, half of them are not using it to have a quality life.
Oh.
They're using it for micro enterprise. Because who is going to give money to the keke rider on the street as an individual? Larry, well, who is that person, right? That's going to give you Uzoma on the street as an individual.
For himself. Not that someone would buy it for him to be...
For himself, yes. So and this also brings me back to the thing about local manufacturing, and I'll talk about that in a second. So the point is that it's not Bank of Industry or even Access Bank, typically not, that will give money to the keke rider. As it's not as a keke, they don't even have a company, right? So it is the consumer credit they will get as themselves
that will help them.
Yeah.
So those are the three that you have to do.
Focused on infrastructure, which is a longer tail, which actually fixes the system. Capital, which is providing capital to financial institutions now through wholesale lending. And then also credit guarantees. I didn't mention that part. Okay. So part of our work in capital as well is credit guarantees.
Beautiful.
So wholesale lending is I give you bank A or microfinance B or whatever you are funding, make it easier for you to provide access, cheaper, whatnot. But credit guarantees is you, bank A or microfinance B, go and use your money. And then if you lose money,
just be sure
I will share the loss with you. So I'm encouraging you to use your own money since you are so afraid. And you are so afraid because the infrastructure doesn't exist. Now, our credit guarantee business, we have now fully expressed. So consumer credit guarantees through the National Credit Guarantee Company, which you know is a different company. We own 25% of that company. We are shareholders and we fund the company as well. And that's our way of saying, don't worry, leave us to deal with the infrastructure problem, us meaning CrediCorp, and the wholesale lending of expanding lending with capital to financial institutions. But that part about collateral provisions, just security, we give you our money for you to help deal with that problem. Since that's your job, like you're set up for that. So we do that. And then the last part after infrastructure and capital is cultural orientation, which is retraining the minds of Nigerians that credit is a good thing that enables your life. Go and borrow to get that laptop so you can start an online business so that you can get a cell phone to be on the internet. Obviously, don't be reckless, but use credit to your advantage. And more importantly, build your credit history, because that is how you show up at a Toyota dealership and they will give you a car.
Beautiful. Now, I want to know, because I can imagine setting this up is like in a hostile climate.
Yeah.
How was it and how has it been going? If you could briefly give us that now.
Thank you. This is
getting people to buy in.
Yes, this has been, as you can imagine, it's been an exciting journey, but it's also, as you can imagine, been a very tough journey. Just building anything from scratch, it's like I was just announced one day and that was it. I existed and nothing else existed, right? And so they just from even starting where you even operate, who is the first person you bring on board, who you work with. So those things take a bit of time, and your policies, even understanding, like opening the account for the operation, now getting buy-in from different stakeholders, just understand the operation, to then begin to support it, and selling this vision of credit is probably, the presidential administration is definitely doing some really stellar things. Think about the tax reform, think about some of these reforms.
Yes.
But we think of credit as a unicorn reform. And what we call a unicorn reform is like a reform that occurs once in a couple of generations. An example of a unicorn reform, which I also think the tax thing sort of fits that bill. An example that maybe resonates because it's lasted longer is the GSM revolution, right? Like you went from 100,000 lines where you had to beg Nitel, bribe them, just wait for several months, and it just wasn't working, right? To, at the last time I checked, close to 100 million phone lines. Like communication is a part of life now, right? Another example with pensions. So you went from every little company, every little agency, every little office running their little pension scheme. The CFO will run with the money. They'll go and invest it. All sorts of scams. People retire. They don't have any hope. To creation of PenCom, sanitizing the pension regime. Now you have PFAs, a whole industry. There's a contribution by your company, there's a contribution by yourself. It is all automated, regimented. You are contributing. When you retire, it's there waiting for you. There's no story to be told. That whole thing is a reform that happens once in a generation, but touches every single person. Like, it's not like nothing to take away from, say, the Petroleum Industry Act. I'm just giving you examples of reforms, right? Petroleum Industry Act, of course, is transformative to the industry. Don't get me wrong; it's massive. But it affects everybody, but it's not direct. I can't tell you what's the direct correlation. If you make the argument, but it's not obvious to the individual, right? That person selling groundnut on the street down there, that somehow the Petroleum Industry Act transformed their life.
Yeah.
But that person had a cell phone. They get it. That I didn't have it before. Now I have it. So
but
credit
is this one?
Credit is a unicorn reform. That all of a sudden, my money can go 4 times the little chickeny money that I have. I can now buy a cell phone and be on the internet. I can get a laptop. I can go to school. I can buy a keke or a car that I would have saved for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years or never had. And it is everybody will experience it, because there's some version of this for everybody. For me, it might be I now can buy a bigger house. For somebody else, it might be I could get a keke. For another else, it will be something else. But everybody, as long as you have a credit history, a credit score, your credit behavior is tracked.
And more exciting is the cultural change.
And the cultural change. Oh, my landlord, that's even a big one. My landlords will start collecting monthly rent once the credit system is fixed.
Let's take a short break. I'll be right back. Thank you, and welcome back from that short break.
Thank you.
I would like us to pick up directly from, I think, where we took a break. How far so far? So good. How much have you been able to do? You've mentioned that some people are already benefiting, some sectors are benefiting. How is that going?
So our target areas have been mobility, people getting access to vehicles, especially locally assembled vehicles.
Not the second-hand one where...
No, you can also get credit to buy any vehicle, but it's just that you don't get it at the concessionary or incentivized rate. It's more like you can almost go get it in the market anyway on your own. But we really focus a lot on incentivizing locally assembled vehicles. Now, obviously, locally assembled vehicles in general are expensive when they are brand new. So we see that a lot of demand has come from locally assembled tricycles and motorbikes. In fact, one of the biggest partners that we worked with is an assembler called TVS that assembles kekes and motorbikes in Lagos. And they assemble about 1,000 of those vehicles every single day. And obviously employ engineers, or even lots of, even we see, I've been to their plant twice, see the women engineers, people assembling, coupling these vehicles. And so we are their biggest off-taker. We're just channeling credit.
Which is helping them grow.
Yeah, which is helping them expand, helping them employ more people. And that maybe brings me to the point about locally assembled vehicles, or locally assembled products in general. So one of our flagship programs in CrediCorp is a program we call Scale, which is securing consumer access to local enterprises. And it's essentially getting consumers to buy made in Nigeria goods. So if you access credit, especially if you get it at these concessionary rates, you go and buy made in Nigeria goods. So you go and buy made in Nigeria vehicles. You go and buy made in Nigeria furniture. And we've seen there's been a lot of tremendous demand from assemblers. I think now we've hit, in terms of the people we've onboarded that have come into our systems, getting close to 2,000 local manufacturers or assemblers or vendors. Now, some of them have to backward integrate, meaning that the components of what they are doing locally is small. For example, the people who do solar. There's a couple of photovoltaic cell companies now that are starting to assemble those. But we see that the component is small. So we say if we channel credit to you, then you must expand your local content and backward integrate so that you can now become either fully assembling or fully manufacturing. But that is a big component of our work. So back to what I was saying about our focus areas. Today we've gotten to getting to close to 150,000 beneficiaries of the consumer credit program of the government, President Tinubu in particular. And it's from people who are getting credit for mobility, that's vehicles. This includes keke, bicycles or cars, who are getting credit for digital devices, so cell phones, laptops, trying to improve their skills, get on the internet, have better communication, things like that. Cell phones, particularly smartphones. Then we also have people who are getting solar energy or alternative energy, we call it. So those are people who put solar home systems in their home, and that's a big part of our portfolio that's really exploding. In fact, we did some work recently with the Ministry of Women Affairs partnership that is called Power 774. It's essentially a way for rural women to get access to solar panels for their homes. And when I say solar panels, don't think the big ones for big people's homes. I'm talking 2 panels, 3 bulbs, 2 fans, 1 television.
But that ticks a very good box. It addresses the issue of gender and it addresses the issue of rural.
Absolutely. And what we've seen is that some of those women have even taken on some sort of enterprise. So you go from having no lights. Now you have 3 bulbs, a fan, a television. And those things come together in the package. And then if you, with a little bit of taking more credits or an upgrade, you can even add a refrigerator. Now those who have that can start a local business drinks, and then even their homes become community viewing centers when there's a soccer match or whatever, because there's always lights, and it just works.
You want to charge your phone.
Yeah, you want to charge your phone, they also do that. They do phone charging. So the power of credit to transform communities is actually, it's hard to underestimate it. It's like the more you think about it, the bigger it gets.
And it ties back to what you said about being a unicorn.
It's a unicorn reform. It's a unicorn reform. And so I'm looking at so mobility, digital devices, solar home systems, and then we have also home improvement and home upgrades. So now we don't do mortgages just because the funding we have, one cannot get to start to do mortgages. And more importantly, there are agencies of government who have that job. Right. So Federal Mortgage Ban, Mortgage Financing Corporation. So we are staying away from that. But we do home improvements. So that means you want to furnish your house, you want to add a toilet, and you'll be surprised that people will get consumer credit from any of our financial institutions that we've enabled, and they'll put a toilet in their house and get rid of the pit latrine. These are real people.
You know, the one that I think a lot of people will be asking now is, how do I get in? Absolutely. If it's already available, people are already taking advantage, how do people get in? How do they enlist?
Right.
That's the word.
So it depends on a couple of things. One is, it doesn't depend on, you just get to the financial institution and seek credit from them. Now, for the youth cred, which I think you're going to ask me soon, you just go to youthcred.com, because as a young person, you can go directly to the website, youthcred.com, and then and particularly the NYSC Corpers, which you just started now, put your call-up number, you go through the credit education, which takes like 2 to 5 minutes, and then you can access the credit. Disbursement happens almost immediately. Or if it's a product you're trying to get, then obviously the product gets to you as well. But for the general public,
please, before we go to the general public, the youth core members, how are they paying back?
Thank you very much for that question. We have your access to your alawi now. So so we're paying you when I say we, the government is paying your salaries. So what happens is that by taking the credit, you just commit to it. We actually see youth credit not even as a credit program, but more as a cultural reorientation program. Because remember that when I spoke to you earlier about infrastructure, I think that as we build that credit infrastructure, credit scores become a real thing. And this is something we're working very closely with the CBN. Credit scores become a real thing. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. Like I say, each of the credit bureaus has something. But no, it's not we don't have the culture of credit scores. It's not unified,
I think some will say it's you that is bringing up the issue of credit score.
Yes. No, I won't take the credit for credit score.
I'm saying
many will say it's us.
We will say it's consciousness.
Yes, the consciousness of it, yes. And also the fact that the lack of consciousness also comes from the fact that it's not, if something doesn't exist in a form that people can digest, then they don't engage it, right? So if each bureau has a different way of doing scoring, And it's not like by law, there's like a unified way of scoring, and then it is propagated where people understand it. And then every credit you do, this is the most important part, every credit, every way you borrow money must be written to your score, affect your score. Either it goes high or it goes low. It's like saying I eat some food and it doesn't affect my weight.
No calories or anything.
Yeah, there's no calories. You can't cheat the thing. Every time you take credit, it must be written to your score. Bear in mind that most of it is for positive, right? So if I take credit and I pay back, my score goes up.
I'm going to take you up on this, but I don't want to divert from the part you were on before I stopped you on the youth part. So you talked about the youth credit, but you were going to the general public. Yes.
So general public, the easiest way is we work with financial institutions, about 23 of them right now, and they are not. Most of them are banks that are or financial institutions that are within the grassroots, so microfinance banks and finance companies.
Where can people get that list? Is it on your
CrediCorp.ng?
Okay.
CrediCorp.ng.
So they can check that.
They can check that. You will see direct contact the financial institution. You will go and apply. Some of them you can even do it right there, because if it's an online process, or you can walk into the banking hall or their branch or whatever it is. We try to make sure that it is institutions that already have established a way of doing consumer credit. That's why some of you may not see, at least at this point where our capital is very limited, you will not see some of like the people that the big banks that are used to seeing lending to say oil companies. They have, first of all, they're flush with capital. Those will work on the guarantee side to say use your own money and we'll guarantee the loans. That's why we work through the credit guarantee company. But for the others, it is the people who are already sort of boots on ground with cooperatives and people who work in some of these groups that need consumer credit and have had a way of working to them. So they are all on our website, CrediCorp.ng. They are PFIs. I can access and go directly.
But the prayer is that as we go on, most of these bigger banks will then.
Yes, I think the bigger banks will do it once we get the infrastructure fixed, right? And that's a bit of a long tail, because then they have the confidence to use their own money. Like when you walk into the Toyota dealership, that credit transaction is still done by a bank. It's just that I, as a customer, don't care. But when I walk into, in this case, Nord or Innocent, right? And I go and say, give me a Nord, Innocent, or Peugeot, or Dunlop Peugeot car. They don't know who, they can check your record. You don't know that they're checking the record with a bank, that there's a bank that is funding the credit. But what's most important is that your credit score is available to them. So I had an opportunity to brief Mr. President on sort of progress so far. And one of the things that he said, in addition to obviously expand the infrastructure, make sure that it's more available, he sort of reminisces on his Chicago days and how credit systems work. But then he also talked about the parts about enabling Dunlop and Peugeot to come back. And of course, that means Nord, Innocent, and all the other sort of. And the idea was that if the credit system does work, then we will be able to patronize and channel credit to enable these manufacturers. And also the chairman of our board, Otumba Abdul, is a man who's crusaded on this particular local manufacturing for a very, very long time.
That also walks into the policy recently of the president, Nigeria First.
Yes, exactly.
So I think it ties in.
Yes, so we are very, very much pro that policy by heavily incentivizing. So if you wanted to buy a Toyota car, you'd probably get it. Just go to the PFI, go to the markets, good luck, maybe give you a little concession here and there. But if you wanted to get a Nord or Innocent vehicle, we want to get it as close to single digits interest rate as possible, just to enable you to, because Nord and Innocent benefit from that credit.
And it's all the economy.
Yes, exactly, benefits from that.
Now, for me, it sounds beautiful, but one key thing you keep saying and keeps ringing in my mind, you say you check the system, it ties into here, it ties into the technology, connectivity, that whole system. How do you see that from your point of view? I'm happy you have a background in Microsoft and you've worked in the banking sector. That, for some people, may be a challenge in our climb. How are you seeing that to make this work seamlessly?
Right. Thank you very much. You see, there's this the technophobia that we may sometimes ascribe to Nigerians, assume that Nigerians are not conversant with or not comfortable with technology. I think technology, as long as it is accessible and understandable to them, right? For one, all I just need to know as an individual when the infrastructure is fixed and is, when I say fixed, sanitized. Okay. Because I keep repeating that the credit bureaus are doing what they can. I don't even blame them. But we as government and regulators, the regulator CBN in this case, have the job to reset the rules of the game.
I'm talking from your perspective, right, where a system is in place, where the network works, seamless integration between the NIN, the bank, like you said, they're walking to a dealer shop. He can put on a system, type, and get into a system. For
that
you,
works.
How is that infrastructure?
There's a lot of, at the risk of minimizing the thing, it's actually not rocket science. I know for people who are not technology inclined, it might sound complicated, but it's actually not that difficult. Okay. And we have to give ourselves as Nigeria credit as well for how advanced we have been at building national infrastructure. Think of the BVN, for example, like the switching networks of the banks. It's actually more advanced than the switching networks of American banks or European banks. Yes, if I wanted to transfer, it's only recently, because I became an adult in America and I went to university there, worked there for a while and all of that. So I'm quite familiar with that country. Now, if I wanted to send money to you, let's say I bank with Bank of America, you bank with Chase Bank.
Yes.
I couldn't just pull up my Bank of America app and send you money in Chase Bank for a long time. In fact, now they have some sort of workaround, this thing they call Zelle and other things that they try to put in between. So it's like I send money somewhere, then that person sends it to you.
Which is what we do sometimes if we want to send through foreign currency.
Right. So it was very complicated. In Europe, it's even worse. In Switzerland, it takes 3 days sometimes. I don't know whether they fixed it now. I mean, the whole Switzerland, I know we talk about Swiss banks. Yes. Right? Everybody talks about Swiss banks. We grew up thinking Switzerland was the center of banking. No, it takes days to do this, and I just said to you now. Germany, the same thing. But in Nigeria, bam, my phone, blah, 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 put your account, what's your bank, what's your phone number, in a minute it has hit you. We call it second nature. These things are revolutionary. When you talk to foreigners about it, their jaws drop. We don't give ourselves credit for that. Same thing with even the NIN systems that I can put your NIN, pull your data, check your identity. I'm not saying they're perfect, but I'm saying that we have actually done a lot of work as a country in building national scale technological infrastructure, and credit will ride on top of these things. It's not that complicated. Now, of course, I said it doesn't mean that it's not a big project. And remember that there are already credit bureaus that have built these things already. So the first work we need to do is even to sanitize the rules around how it works and how the public interacts with it.
And even the institutions you're partnering with.
And the institutions that partner with how they interact with it. How even a landlord can check. How do you, to be able to say, okay, I'll give you monthly rent. How a store, you want to go to spa shop, and you want to buy a TV. They should be able to say, oh, buy it now, pay over 12 months or whatever. But how do I know when I get to the teller? They say, okay, give me your card or give me your NIN or whatever, put it in, and they see your eligibility and you qualify, you leave that place with the television. You now have a TV, period. The TV doesn't know whether you paid it in cash, full or not. Now, so that's not the issue. I think, or it's not the big problem. The bigger problem is the public being able to, again, have an orientation of credit. I even say to people, now I tell them, go and check your credit score. Go and check, even as it exists now, with any bureau. Now, it's not the same, it's different things. Again, like I said, it needs to be sanitized. But go and check the one that is there and have an orientation about it. Go and try and get a piece of consumer credit. Well, everybody in my office, I say, you must go and get consumer credit.
You mean it's available to everyone?
Yes, go and get the piece of consumer credit, even if it's not the one that's enabled by CrediCorp.
Yes.
Go and get the one that is out there. Go and try to get...
And see.
Yes, and experience credit. See whether your score changes. If it doesn't, then okay, you know that it doesn't work, because sometimes it doesn't work, and that's the problem, right? Because if it always works 100% of the time, then the banking system will rely on it, right?
Okay, so let me take you now, because I think we've spoken about what is possible, but there's this perception that this is for us in the city and all that. Outside the example you gave of the project you did with the women in the rural area, someone will say a lot more Nigerians are in the rural areas than in the, what do you call it, city centers. How are you going about this when you think about them?
The beautiful thing about what I call a unicorn reform, and remember, I'm painting you a picture of a long term, but I'm also telling you what we've done, what is happening now. Right? So we're enabling the credits even now, but knowing that the government cannot fund 180 trillion naira, so that for it to be available to just everybody, like you have in America, we have to fix the infrastructure, working closely with CBN as we are, with the CBN, and so that the banking system throws their money at credit, consumer credit, lending to individuals. I always even say that, sometimes we bash bankers a lot, which is why I have a bit of I understand the excesses of the banking system, but I also have a bit of understanding of capital preservation. They want to preserve capital. So I'm saying that I, as a banker, if I'm a banker, I want to lend, I feel more satisfaction giving, like somebody walks into like a young person walked into my bank and said, I want to buy a car, I want to buy a laptop. I get more satisfaction giving them credit to get that car, seeing them build their lives. It's actually satisfying. I'd rather do that, and most bankers, I believe, are that way. If I could do it without losing my money, I'd rather do that than take the money and go and pack it in treasury bills or government bonds. Who is government? What is that? I mean, obviously, it's part of the economy and it's important, but it's not a personal satisfaction. Or even worse, go and buy FX, like some maybe the more mushroom banks do. So they want to do it. It's just there is nothing to tie them together, right? So I think that we have big opportunity to do that. And even though I spend a lot of time speaking on infrastructure, as a government, when we count the milestones of President Tinubu on consumer credit, today we count the hundreds of thousands of people that are accessing consumer credit enabled by CrediCorp that are actively bettering their lives. Like one of the recent programs we had, besides Youth Cred, which you've seen, one of the programs we had was with what we call Queen Riders. So women buying kekes in their name, right, across the country. So it's about 3,000. We're working with Action Microfinance Bank and this institution called Gamma Mobility. They are aggregators of keke riders. They procure the equipment, or they enable you to procure the equipment credit. So we are providing credits to enable them to do that. And seeing women, I asked myself, why is it okay that a woman can carry 40 yams on her head, right, in a basin, with a baby on her back, and just be strutting, selling the yams or groundnuts or pop or whatever. But it's somehow not dignified that she can sit in a keke and ride you and you pay her for it. We don't agree with that. So we're saying, no, Queen Riders is a program that enables women to be financially self-sufficient by being keke riders. And it's funky, their keke is pink, so it's very kind of interesting. Right? But so we see that as we are growing that program, they're getting the program through consumer credit. It doesn't change the other people who are getting kekes and motorbikes in their name. It's just a little sort of twist. It's like a fun project, right? But why I'm saying this is to say that before, if you wanted to buy a car, and we also see Uber drivers that work with auto check. So they go and they get checked through auto check and VFD, the microfinance institution. They can buy vehicles, and when they buy vehicles, they can do their Uber riding. We've maxed out the auto check program twice now. Just because the demand is enormous. We can't even meet it, right? So, but what I'm seeing is that people are become more self-sufficient. Before, you would have gone to look for a sponsor.
Yes.
Who would buy the thing and give you on higher purchase. Then you are remitting something to the person. Then you obviously now have this issue of arbitrage. Then you don't get enough to keep for yourself. But now you are your own sponsor. The Queen Riders are their own sponsor. The other people who have the thousands of are their own sponsors. The auto check people who bought the vehicles are their own sponsors. That is the power of consumer credit.
Now, from where you sit, two things before the time runs out from me. What would you say as your greatest challenge right now?
First, I think the greatest challenge has been the fundamental challenge of just the infrastructure issue, right? Which, like I said, it takes some time to get it sort of fixed. Because when you do that, then you will unlock so much more capital than even the government can provide. So the biggest challenge, I guess I would say, is capital, just funding to be able to even meet the enormity of the demand. I mean, our demand is clocking 10 million people who have come and said, I want this thing now, right? Yes. So, but we don't have the capital to meet the demand. It's just enormous, right? And these are even people who have self-selected, not those who are still averse to credit, who are still worried about being onigbese. So my point is, the demand is so high.
Little over a year, this is what you've been able to do.
Yeah.
Looking at your rate of progress and how much impact you've been able to achieve across, what timeline are you looking at, would you say, before you may begin to see what you would appreciate as a good mark?
Well, first of all, I said that we definitely appreciate where we are now.
Yes, I get that.
As a good mark. And more importantly is that for us, by 2030, the target that we set, committed to the president, by 2030, 50% of the commercially active population of Nigeria will have access to consumer credit on a continuous basis. That means by 2030, 180 trillion naira worth of consumer credit will be flowing in the country.
I think from the way you've said it, Nigerians will be looking forward to making sure it works so that they can get the benefit. I would like to thank you very much for spending time with us and explaining this, even as we look forward to it
to more,
bigger and better. Thank you so much. Now, it's interesting to understand that some of us are already taking advantage of this. Would like to hear from you. How did you find the process? What would you like to be improved upon? And for those who are yet to, do you have questions that you need answers to? Well, send your views in and let's discuss. Let's hear from you. Send your views to our social media handles and the email address here on the screen. We also have past episodes of this program on our YouTube channel. You can search for NewsNight on that playlist. You'll find a selection there. This is where we'll be wrapping up our episode for this week. Thanks for being there. Bye.